Reactions were mixed, some saddened by the news, others not so surprised. But amidst all this drama, one guy made a bold move that caught everyone's attention. Meet Michael Joyce, owner of Emoto.
If it didn't happen by July 1st, I was going to throw this out of the fucking.
This is it, the first inaugural podcast. The irony behind this, by the way, is that I bought this camera equipment the audio equipment a long time ago. I've been getting shit from him since the absolute jump because all it's gone to is basically a nice looking setup on my desk. And he's been ripping me a new one because this is obviously, we're in fucking June 19th and this is the first official podcast.
The first podcast was supposed to happen on June 1st.
Well, we're getting it done.
This is the buzzer beater right here.
Yeah.
And Nick gets left with the janky mic.
Thank you, Michael Moise.
But here we go. What's the deal, y'all? We got Michael Joyce in the house, Emoto, plenty of other shit. We're gonna kick things off. If you want to just give us a little bit of background of who you are and what you currently do.
How in depth are we talking? Are we talking like
balls deep?
Yeah.
We're talking absolute balls deep.
All right, so
we're talking Inception.
Oh, where do we start? Michael Joyce. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Came down to UT 2016 to get a degree in entrepreneurship. I've always been into business pretty much my entire life. My parents own small business. I came down here, started doing internships my freshman and sophomore year. I was the president of Entrepreneurship Club at UT, and then basically left. I didn't leave school. I went part-time and went full-time into working. I was working at a small private equity firm, real estate operating businesses here for about 3.5 years. Worked on various different types of projects. One of those projects happened to be a golf cart manufacturer and then also a dealership. So I was involved in that for about 1.5 years. Ended up leaving, and then about a year later, got the bug to start this two-wheel adventure, Emoto. And so Emoto we launched actually almost a year ago now. So I focus on this. This is sort of like my passion project. We have a team of 4 guys that work on this, including myself. And then outside of Emoto, I'm actually building a real estate brokerage for retail commercial. So that's kind of, where my time is spent on those 2 endeavors.
A lot on the plate.
Absolute unit. That's awesome. How was UT, by the way? Because I graduated there too. What did it do for you?
UT was great. So UT for me, realistically, I feel like I think this is outside of even just UT. I think you get out what you put in. So for me, like at UT in the entrepreneurship program, I put a ton of time into building relationships, and I've always not been a classroom learner. I've been more so like a hands-on learner, and so I spent a ton of time building relationships, building connections. When I got involved in the entrepreneurship program for the first 2 years, I spent most of my time up there meeting different entrepreneurs, and realistically got a ton out of it there, just from basically different connections that I had, internships. One of the internships that I had ended up leading into the job that I had for 3.5 years, which that kind of got me all the connections, put me on the map with experience-wise to launch everything that we have now. So I'm pretty close, probably 3 to 4 months out from being fully on my own with these 2 ventures.
So that's fucking awesome.
Speaking about internships, we peered into your background a little bit, and you spent some time at the Grease Investment Fund. One of our close friends, Bob Grease, who has been a big part of our pickleball journey so far. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your time with Mr. Grease was at his shop?
That was great. I mean, that was I learned a ton. I was fortunate in the entrepreneurship program. I ended up actually going to watch Bob speak at an event. He's from Cleveland. I'm from Cleveland.
Oh, that's right.
He was in private equity. Wanted to go have a meeting with him, ask him to be a mentor or whatever, see what might come of it. So I ended up actually reaching out to him, brought me into his office. I think, a lot of the guys looking back at it were surprised that I could even get a meeting with him to start. So ended up meeting with him, met for 30, 45 minutes. I was working on, 20 startups back in the day that nothing ever happened with. I think the only thing I learned from those was how to problem solve. But yeah, so I was fortunate that at the time, his daughter was also in college, so he's looking for a way to basically educate her on everything that he does, but not just on a one-on-one basis. So he brought in 4 different interns to basically spend the summer with him, realistically just learning. So I almost got like an MBA from him into investments, bank debt, how deals are structured. So that was really kind of the start of my background sort of on the investment side of things. Learned a lot about cap rates, how to structure, real estate acquisitions, how to structure business acquisitions, how financing worked, how operations worked, how to underwrite. I mean, it was
that your
great.
deep dive, or you had been doing that for a long time though, just on your own, just of like
prior to
passions?
Bob, I had done a lot of my own personal startups and then also like interned with people. So that was really like probably no structure, trying to just kind of figure it out on a daily basis. Whereas whenever, we started working with Bob, I had, I think it was 24 hours a week, and we spent 7 or 8 weeks with him, and then
Are we gonna ask Atlas a question, or are we just gonna leave him hanging forever? I think that's what you'll get a question, Atlas. We're coming for you next. He's one of 3 other brothers. This is Atlas, everybody. I feel like it was fucked up that we didn't give him an introduction off the jump. He was kind of hanging in kangaroo pouch style on I wonder if he's here on the frequency, like as something gets fucked with.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome. That's sick though. Bob Grease is an awesome human being. We play pickleball with him probably about once a week. That's kind of how we met him.
Yeah, Bob's an animal.
Love to see if he can do a celebrity appearance to play right here. Tell him Michael Joyce is in the house.
We'll tell him.
Coming to the dark warehouse dungeon.
How's Bob in the office? We've only seen him on the court, and so he's probably a different beast.
Bob's definitely intense in the office. I mean, I was fortunate. This was, I think, more of a passion thing for him when we were there over the summer. So we got to listen to all of his calls. Bob's done a lot from A to Z over the last 20 years of investments. He's had some really successful real estate deals here locally, a couple successful massive company exits. They did an energy company that they actually bought, and I think it was back in the early 2010, 2012, and they basically took it and scaled it out. I think they actually took it public, so that was like one of his biggest projects. But yeah, Bob's, he's definitely very competitive, has a crazy background with his family, founded the Browns back in the day.
Yeah.
And then Greece Investment Fund's been kind of his whole journey over the past couple of years. So he's doing all kinds of different stuff. I actually haven't caught up with him in probably since I was there. So maybe that was 4.5 years ago. So.
This will be the excuse right here.
We got a Sunday barbecue invite. So we do once a month barbecues at Bob's house. Barbecues. So next one.
I'll have to for sure. Yeah, we gotta.
That's a good
time.
We all just grill out, shoot the shit, and fucking play
prodigal
some
son
pickleball,
returns
swim.
home.
Yeah, bring him back. That's sick though. That's awesome. How did you network up with him? Where did that come about? Just meeting him through
an event, and then I reached out, went to his office, met with him, and then literally that was the timing was perfect. I think it was the springtime or maybe wintertime, and his daughter was going into her sophomore year. I think I was going into my junior year. So he asked me, he's like, hey, I'm doing this internship program. If you want to be a part of it, it's going to be 7 weeks, da-da-da-da. And it was basically I got an MBA and got, it wasn't crazy pay. It was internship pay, but we got to learn for 7 weeks. I would have taken no pay to do that for the summer. So
100%.
That's better than the interns.
Yeah, it's better than most internships you'll get. Now, I don't know if this is just how I know you or of you or how most people do, but when I hear your name, I think and I hear Hidehouse, and I feel like that's a collective thing amongst at least a group of people. So how does that tie into your life and
yeah? So basically, after working with Bob Grease, Steve John Filippo, who's managing partner of Hidehouse, Station House, Gianco Companies, the investment arm that owns all of that, I ended up shadowing with him for about 2 or 3 weeks when I was working with Bob, and I ended up just going in and kind of at that point asking, want to see what you do. It wasn't a job at that point, so I ended up just kind of going in, wanting to see what he did with Station House, saw some stuff they were working on, and then ended up at that point, after 2 or 3 weeks, he's like, why don't you come work for me? I didn't really know too much about private equity at that point, about underwriting, all of that stuff. And then I think one of the first things I did was work on the pro forma financials for what was to become Hidehouse. At that point, it was going to be called Station Outside Park. Then the name changed to Hide House. And then, Public Studios obviously in there now. There's a bunch of different concepts, but worked with him for 3.5 years. And that's where, definitely got a lot of my experience, got connected in the community. So very fortunate for that experience, and everything that was to come of Hide House and everything that's going on there. So yeah, that was, probably 3.5 years from inception. I probably was involved in the project for over a year before we opened, and then ended up launching fully leased on offices. And then I think by the time I was leaving, we had about 600 memberships and, fully leased on office space. And it's pretty crazy to see what that's become.
Yeah, that's sick. It was sick when it
put
first
his
opened.
mark in Tampa, baby. It's all over Tampa.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that definitely helped spark the network. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of different entrepreneurs that we met from there, and then obviously the project kind of put Gianco on the map in Tampa. I mean, he was already pretty well known here, but that definitely helped, solidify the brand.
Solidify it, yeah. What were some of the biggest projects since that for Gianco?
I'm not too sure what he's been up to recently. I mean, I know that they're launching a new concept in Hyde Park that I had worked on a little bit back in the day. But I mean, outside of that, I've been pretty much on my personal stuff since
For sure.
probably about 2.5 years ago now. So I left, spent a little bit of time working on a startup. Basically, it was going to be a medical concept that ended up pivoting into tech. And on the technology side, I was just kind of lost. Probably, I think I was on it for like 6 or 8 months at that point, but it was supposed to be real estate. I'm a real estate guy, was going to focus on the build out side of things. We're building like a medical concierge, ended up pivoting into a tech component. And so for me, I've never launched an app. I've never really marketed for technology. So just didn't really feel like my exact fit was there. So kind of at that point in time, I had some other opportunities come up on the real estate side of things. And then also, was kind of contemplating this idea for Emoto when I reached out to Cake, and ended up being set up as their first dealership, which has now turned into a lot of cakes.
A lot of cake. Mucha torta.
A lot of cake.
A lot of cake.
Out
Damn.
of all the ventures you worked on, out of all the ventures that you've worked on, is Emoto.
There you go. Hold it nice and close.
Yeah.
Out of all the ventures
there's
that
that
you've
voice.
worked on, is
There it
Emoto
is.
been the one with the strongest roots and foundation as far as, other than your real estate business? Has this one gone on further than some of the other 20 that you said kind of in the past historically?
I mean,
We should put everyone's
personally-
ratios up, and I feel like the more that you failed, the higher odds that you're going to be successful, like the most successful. We should put everybody's ratios up of like how many startups that they've worked on and kind of where they're at and all that, where they've been.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, the ones that I was working on personally back in college, like I was 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, like I just didn't know anything. Like I worked in my family's business for a handful of years. I'd done some internships, but going into one of these businesses, there's so much to know. I mean, especially in today's day and age with marketing, social, how do you take the brand to market? And then on top of that, the operational side of things. And, with Emoto, I think I've had some learning lessons myself and kind of realized everything that I'm not good at. And I've been fortunate to fill those needs or those gaps with a phenomenal team around me. I think the more that I've worked on some of these different startups, like when I was with Steve Gianfilippo for 3.5 years, we launched a lot of concepts and, was fortunate to have kind of a lot of the pieces of the puzzle already covered. Whereas whenever we launched Emoto, I had thought that I learned a lot in those things, but I feel like no matter what you're doing or no matter which level you're at, you're still going to learn something on a different base just as things change over time and stuff like that. And so for me with Emoto, I think what I found where I best fit is sort of on the growth side of things, working with manufacturers, working on the actual brand, the creative side of things and the marketing side of things. And then like the day-to-day operations being, in every single deal, negotiating every single deal, being in the day-to-day operations, like that's where I lack. Like I'm not a good manager of people. So I've been fortunate to, bring on partner Robert Sanchez out of New York, who's actually running all of my day-to-day operations, with the guys, Fred Nix and Alex Loganoff, that are down here on site running the day-to-day. And then hopefully Robert will actually end up coming here full-time whenever we launch our new location in Tampa, shooting for later this year. So that's going to be like, we launched in St. Pete. We have 1,500 square feet there. We're going to launch 4,000 square feet here. There's going to be a coffee component, a bunch more retail. It's going to be
sick.
A much larger concept. So we're working on a lease now. Hopefully get that done within the next, month and a half, and then open later this year. The build out should be pretty quick as long as we get this location rocking and rolling. But yeah, I mean, I think that for me, like Emoto definitely has the most legs. I started it with this one brand sort of, with a business partner as more of like a passion project and something to kind of get the brand out there and get myself personally. Like I've done a lot of businesses, been associated with a lot of things, but I never had my one thing that's Michael Joyce, a successful operator, and here's what he's created. And so Emoto was the first opportunity to do that. Fortunately, I had some other things. I was working on the real estate side of things that kind of have given me the opportunity to make it by. Like I still haven't taken a paycheck. Maybe this will be the first month where I take a little bit of a draw.
Let's give a round of applause.
Round of applause
out there for the first month.
Round of applause for
It
Paul.
took us probably eight and a half months before we took our first $1,000 paycheck per month.
Ready to retire is what we call it.
All you looking to start a business out there.
My advice to you is don't do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think anything takes like a year to just even figure it out, or
100%.
just, I mean, everything's about reps and how long you're doing things. And then even like when you launch a thing, like to build a brand takes a long time. So, when we started this business, we were in Emoto in St. Pete. I think my first order was 3 units from Cake. Well, 7 orders total. My dad bought a couple and then I bought a few. And then we basically set up shop, and it's been an unbelievable
set up shop. Like you had retail out the gate before you did the acquisition and everything?
So initially I got in touch. Well, so the story of Emoto starts even earlier with a brand called Maving, which I'll tell you guys another funny story how that comes full circle here shortly. But I was, looking to I really wanted like a cafe racer, sort of like electric moped motorcycle. I was living in Hyde Park. At that time, I was working at Hyde House. It was not very far. Or I think even after that, I was still working in Channelside. So not far at all from where I was at. Driving a V8 SUV around didn't really make much sense. So I just wanted something to really get around on. I've never been a two-wheel guy myself. I was never into motorcycles or bikes or whatever it might be. But from my experience in the golf cart industry, kind of saw that there could be an opportunity there, but really just wanted something in the beginning. So I was looking at this brand called Maving out of the UK. They've just recently came to the States, but they have this really sick cafe racer. It looks straight up like a 70s or 80s cafe racer, but it's all electric. It does like 45. I think they have a new model coming out that does like 60. But I wanted one at that point in time. So I just kind of like shot him a message. I think this was like October, maybe 2 years ago. Probably a little bit longer at this point, actually. And then they kind of just had reached out and said, hey, we're not coming to the States yet. We don't really have a plan in place. They ended up reaching back out to me in February. And I had been at the tech company at this time working there. Obviously still had the entrepreneurial bug inside of me. And they had reached out. I had a conversation with them, and they wanted to see if I wanted to do something in Miami or New York. And the timing wasn't right on that company, but that kind of got like the juices flowing for me to do something. And so I had been referred to Cake by a friend of mine. For anyone that's seen Cake's Instagram or their marketing, I mean, it's like the most badass, brand from an image. They actually got ranked an Interbrand top 50 brand in the globe. So that was the original founder, Stefan Yetterbaum. That was kind of his whole thing, was the brand side of this. And so I'd seen what they were doing. I'm definitely more of a creative guy myself. Thought there could be a good opportunity to open up a dealership, and the brand was renowned and all of this. And so we got into it. I could spend probably the next hour talking about all the things we've learned in a year. But to just do a quick run through of it, launch with Cake. Initially, we were going to do online and then do like add-on test rides, not have a retail front. And then I think right off the bat, I kind of realized it was going to be tough to do that, tough to get the brand out there. What I'm good at is rallying people to a location, to an event, or come see a product. And so like with my real estate background. So fortunately, I was able to strike a pretty good deal with a landlord that I'd been close with from my time at Jacko Companies. Signed a deal for temp space in St. Pete where we've been for a year. We'll probably get a little bit over a year out of it. The building's getting demoed actually to build a development, but I was able to get in at a really low rate on rent, which really gave us the need to survive. So for the first 6 or 8 months, we burned cash. I was able to keep the expenses low enough for us to, basically Cake was trying to figure it out, the price point and all of that. And so we started with really high price points, brought the price points down to where they made a little bit of sense, started to work out the model to where it was being successful. And then right around January, we had our biggest month ever, 10 units with this product, which was very boutique at the time, was a big deal for us. We were selling a couple units in the beginning. And February 1st, Cake went bankrupt. And so that kind of threw everything for a loop. So then the last 5 months has been our pivot and kind of figuring out what to do. We've brought on additional brands. I had additional brands teed up whenever they did go bankrupt. But it was really like spur of the moment, and they weren't like on the floor ready to sell. And so at that point in time, it was like, figure it out. It was 2 options: go bankrupt or see if I could negotiate a good deal to buy my consignment inventory. I had 20 units on deck. I could at least, if I could get a good deal, I could potentially sell those to make back some of the cash. But I ended up taking it a step farther, and then we did 2 acquisitions. One acquisition of basically 80 to 90% of what Cake had left in the U.S., which is around 240 units. And then after that, we just recently closed on the bankruptcy acquisition of all of the assets that they had remaining in their warehouse and throughout the United States. So we basically bought everything that Cake had stateside, cleared out, actually finished clearing out their warehouse this past week. So now we have around 280 new units, a couple demos here in Florida that will sell off probably this month. And now Cake is fortunately got bought out of bankruptcy in Sweden, has new ownership, and we are now the service partner of the U.S. So
that's sick.
Pretty wild ride.
Congratulations.
That is insane.
That's
Congrats.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
so that's
that it got picked up.
Went through your first Chapter 11 acquisition in the first 2 years of business. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it
that's
was
sick.
definitely completely unexpected. We made a run at it, and fortunately, I feel a little bit more. Definitely way more confident about it now. Whenever we were going through the thick of it, it was a little bit stressful. I had to basically get Brett Morgan, my investor, to send me a wire for a line of credit in a week and a half time period. We didn't really have anything to do. I was out of money at that point in time. So we went through our burn of the initial investment, and fortunately, I had an offer to buy our 25 assets on deck at on site at Emoto, because I weren't going to pay to ship them back. I was like, what if I just take this offer and make it for everything that's left? And so ended up making it for
to match the same offer though, essentially.
Well, at that point in time, there wasn't really anyone at the table. So they had filed for bankruptcy in Sweden. They hadn't filed for bankruptcy in the States. They're still operational, kind of getting closer to that point. They laid everyone off and basically needed to cover some of the liabilities. So they took my initial acquisition to kind of pay down some of that, and then filed for Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 after that. And so I ended up buying all the remaining assets here, probably about, we closed on the deal at the end of last month, and then sold a bunch of units out of LA, shipped everything out. So we literally, I left Friday, last truckload, 7:45 at night, filled it up, got out of there. So now we've shipped out 9 truckloads from LA. Still have some more bikes in New York that we're selling off. And then, Cake was a really big brand. So I have a list of all of the internal assets that they have, and Sean White has a bike, Ronnie Fig from Kith has a couple bikes.
That's awesome.
Pretty crazy.
That's sick. That's awesome.
That's good. So now we know we have someone to coach us through acquisition when we buy sell.
There we go.
I don't know if this is your standard thing. This was definitely a pretty wild one, but
a 2-wheel journey. I think that's going to be the name of this podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
What out of I guess you have to be bullish on the electric vehicle space overall to get into this business. And then on top of that, you have to be even more bullish on 2-wheel electric vehicles, since most of the buzz is around 4-wheel automotive electric vehicles right now. So what is it that kind of pushes you forward and kind of gives you that encouragement that, hey, this is a product that has a growing market that's going to continue to expand as the world changes, gas-powered combustion vehicles start to decrease? Or
it's a good question. So Brett, my business partner, I've been fortunate to learn a lot and kind of see his output on things. They're obviously big in the car space, so they have 75 franchise dealers at this point. They're obviously retailing a lot of EVs on top of all the the other units. I think they're going to sell 160,000 cars this year, which is an insane number. So shout out to Brett. Thanks for helping me get this far, helping
That's
me get this
awesome.
going. But, you know, I don't think I knew the exact fit of this when I got into it. I think it was more so like, let's buy these bikes. It's 25,000 to get the first order, and let's start selling them, and then we'll sell 20, 30 of them, see the fit, and see if we need it. And so my goal was to kind of stay cake specific for a while until, you know, a handful of months into it, I started to realize how niche this specific product is. It's a moped, so it has 17-inch bin. You got to get it street legal. It's not really like a great family application because you're not going to want to put your kid on a bike that does 60 miles an hour and take him around.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've expanded our product footprint to have 3 different brands now. So we have Murph electric bikes, which is your fat tire cruiser, good for the beach. You can put a carrier in the back, put 2 kids on it. And then we have, on the other side of that, we have a full electric motorcycle. We don't really have like an M1 offering here. We have a couple OSA Pluses, which are is this specific bike that goes 56. But all the flex models, which we mostly have in Florida and most of our inventory is, we have the Maka and Osa, which are mopeds that go 28 miles an hour, but they're registered. And so for us, it's really like competing on price. You got to pay for registration. There's a couple other things. And so this is again, a very niche product. But my outlook on 2-wheel specific, I think that has kind of shaped itself over the last 12 months in all my experiences. And so, you know, we've learned a lot. I think, you know, the 2-wheel outlook, my synopsis was very simple at the beginning. It was, you know, I had a pretty good understanding of the LEV space, or LSV space at that time, with my time in the golf cart industry for probably about a year and a half. And, you know, the 2-wheel space is kind of, I would say, 2 or 3 years behind the golf cart revolution. So, like, obviously, Tesla is taking off, and the 4-wheel space is continuing to change. I think a lot of the legacy manufacturers are having a tough time selling their EVs. I think Tesla's the only one to really like jump on top of it and really capture that market. I think Rivian and some of the other like EV specific brands started to somewhat figure it out, but it's really tough with the cost of everything. And I think the government's playing a big role in how that's changing. Golf carts, I think, has definitely started to get a little bit more saturated because during COVID there was a huge rise. You know, the company I was at did extremely well, and at one point I think everyone realized that they could buy a couple containers of carts from China, ship them in, start their own brand. And so you've seen a lot of that in the golf cart space. There's probably 150 different brands to choose from in golf carts. I think there's still that in this space as well. But when you look at retail in our specific space, especially the VIN side of things, when I say the VIN side, the mopeds and motorcycles, you know, with Cake and Land is the other brand that we're carrying out of Cleveland, Ohio, those you have to have a dealer's license. And so you can't really just sell through like a bike retailer or any, you know, retail shop. You have to have a dealer's license set up with the state. So it's a bit more of a process to get all the way through all of that. And so a lot of these companies, like if you look at legacy, like Kawasaki, Honda, all of the current motorcycle brands, they, like Harley has their own retail, but a lot of these other brands sell to these massive internal combustion engine power sports dealerships where they have 5 to 10 different brands under one roof or whatever that might be. Some of them have different, you know, brand reliance, or regulations on where they can sell and what brands they can be around. You know, these guys in the electric space, nothing exists. So there's not like an electric specific power sports store, especially in 2-wheels. So that's kind of where I've started to see the gap for where Emoto is sort of fitting in is, you know, if you look at the space, and now I'm going back to hyper focusing on 2-wheels, you know, you have bike shops, some, but there's, you know, like I think in Tampa we have Trek, we have Pedego, there's a couple different stores in St. Pete, there's Rad is the big one in St. Pete. But e-bikes, you pretty much buy online right now, and when you get over a price point of, say, $2,500 or $3,000, people want to touch it, feel it, ride it. So that's kind of where we see the opportunity with Emoto is we've expanded the footprint. We're going to, in the new store, have likely 3 to 5 core pedal brands, and then we'll expand to probably 2 to 3 LSV, well, really motorcycle, not LSV, excuse my language there, more so motorcycle VIN M1 products. And so under that landscape, we'll likely sell a lot more quantity of e-bikes just because that's a little more mainstream. So that will be kind of the main push where we maybe are selling 50 to 100 units a month of e-bikes. And then this sort of Emoto electric motorcycle niche is still very niche. It's not like, you have someone that's maybe driving a sedan flipping over to a Tesla. This is definitely more so you have a whole new rider base, because if you look at like internal combustion engines, you have, a clutch, it's loud, it's heavy. Cake's whole slogan was light, quiet, clean. It's the complete opposite of what a standard combustion engine motorcycle is. And so with the rise of e-bikes and all of that, you have a whole new rider base of people that are going from a bike jumping on an electric motorcycle, because it's actually extremely easy to ride. There's not like a whole, struggle of understanding how to ride it. So that's what I would say is my kind of output. Like, this is where we fit into that specific niche. But I think that, we're on year 1 or 2 of a 10-year growth curve, but it's going to be niche for a very long time, because I would say 80% of our consumers are new, not a Harley rider jumping on a Land or jumping on a live wire or something like that.
First time two-wheelers.
Yeah, so that's definitely has its own characteristics, or that crowd definitely is going to likely stick to internal combustion engines, whereas this is going to be likely a whole new rider base that maybe as a Tesla wants to put this on the back of their Cybertruck or something and drive around and go drive it off-road. So
and the e-bike is really not a gateway to something like this for the majority of the rider base that you've seen so far? Like the typical e-bikes where you're kind of like assisted, I guess?
So that's what when I say like the pedal brands, so we'll have 4 to 6 pedal brands, and then I think people will graduate up to this once they get used to it. I mean, realistically, it's all use case driven, I think. So think about golf carts. If you look back 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't like everyone had a golf cart and they were driving it around. A couple people started getting in their neighborhood and then realized the benefit of not having to use a car to go run an errand or run to the coffee shop or do whatever. So that basically just started to grow as far as the regulations slowed down and people started seeing the use case over and over again. So I think e-bikes, you've seen enough of that use case. I think electric mopeds and motorcycles, we're still going to start to see that revolution. But right now, I'd say we're still in like an early adopters phase of people trying out one of these and being like, that makes sense. I live in Channelside. I live in Heron. I don't need a car. I could use this to get to Hyde Park, Armature Works, wherever that might be.
The number one advocate / early adopter. I've been riding a 2-wheel electric scooter for 3 years. So
well, we're gonna need to get you on a Merv for a cake here shortly.
I'm with it. I support, especially in this area down where we're at. For anyone who doesn't know where we're at.
Yeah, every other person that you see on a scooter in the Harbor Island or Channelside area is Nick.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's honestly so everyone, I don't know if you're watching this, you don't know this. Tampa's building an insane amount of buildings right where we're here. Juxtaposed to us is downtown Tampa, and they have no plans on changing the roadway. So we're going to bring in another 60, 70,000 people into this area and have absolutely no change in the way that our traffic is laid out. And we already have terrible, terrible traffic around that time. Like, he can attest to it. We're a mile away, and I get here way faster than anybody in the car. Like, if I'm on my 20-mile-an-hour scooter and we start at the same point, I'll be here 5-10 minutes before you, especially during traffic hours. So.
Another thing that's going to shift too, I mean, especially I think in cities like Tampa, is like when you go overseas, right? It's a con right now that people don't like having bikes because people don't respect two-wheelers on the road. There's like no doubt. Like in the majority of America, people don't. You go to like Madrid, I lived there for 6 months. I had a bike. I had like a Moto Guzzi. It's fucking awesome. You'll see more of them than cars on the road, and you can park them anywhere. 100%. And like in doing that, like people are gonna respect and be cautious around kind of two-wheelers way more than they are around regular vehicles, and that's going to continue to grow here slowly. Yeah. And then that's gonna like I think skyrocket the world and the community around this as like a whole.
Well, the cool thing that you guys might not be completely up to speed on is the city has basically put in a whole plan for additional bike lanes. And so they're building out by 2027. They're trying to connect like Hyde Park all the way to the Heights to downtown to Channelside and kind of create at least a main roadway or some other main roadways that have protected bike lanes on new roads. And so that's kind of the big thing. And, we've been in St. Pete for a couple years. I would love to keep the store there. For me, it's sort of, I'm a Tampa guy. I want to bring something here to the heart of everything. And then, realistically, I think there's opportunity just because there are some players in the market, but I just, I'm confident with our network and what we're going to do out of the space. We're going to create something that's never been seen before. Basically this Moto Cafe concept, similar to something that would be on the West Coast. So it's going to have a bunch of different clothing brands to go along with the bikes, and then a coffee component as well. So we're going to kind of try to bring it all together in sort of a destination concept Whereas, it's just tough for me in St. Pete. That's not where my whole network is.
For sure.
And I'm really good with events.
Love
being
what
able
you're
to
doing
blow
there.
up the
I'm a very
events.
in-person shopper.
Yeah.
I'm not a big online.
He's never, I don't know how many people you've met like this, but he's actually never made an Amazon purchase in his entire life.
Yep, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, that's just,
I go
at that
through
point,
Drew for all my Amazon orders.
Think about all the time you waste as a human being not shopping on Amazon. I don't want to even fucking hear about the savings.
well, that's fine. You can come to my store and buy a
Savings
bike
in
then.
time has nothing to do with my peace of mind.
That's his meditation. So
Right.
if that's the case, and that truly is the case, and not just a silly
Sit
excuse, you
behind your
can't.
computers, kids. Order your Amazon products. Play
I
your
will continue
video
to do
games,
so.
and you'll never meet anybody like Michael Joyce in real life.
Yeah, because this is how we met Michael Joyce, avoiding
true.
making an Amazon payment.
No, it's awesome. Honestly, everything you have going on sounds amazing. It's
I appreciate it.
Sounds
No,
a
it's
lot
like-
like our journey, especially just looking at these cake bicycles that seem to be high end.
You guys want to see cake? I'll turn around right now.
You know,
You want to see the real cake?
I think figuring it out and kind of, how you said you're going into pedal brands is kind of what we're doing now as well. We're starting to introduce these lower price point products that allow people to experience the brand and the overall brand experience without having to spend, that top tier pricing right at the gate. So I think that, you've kind of figured it out as alongside.
We've definitely had that same thing in terms of product array. Like in building a brand, you want to have, you want to build a knit community, but you want to be able to expand it to as many people that see fit. And in doing so, you have to grow the product array, and that's kind of that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, in retail, you gotta hit every use case. So I think that's what we realized after a little while is how many people were walking in the door that I didn't have something that they could buy. So
Right.
Yeah,
now
big
we're
time.
trying to fill up as many opportunities as possible with all these different brands, create the relationships. And realistically, at this point, we're going to sell what we like to sell, what's good quality product, and
Right.
honestly, looks badass. That's, I think, probably
That's the
my
go-to,
main,
yeah.
main
That's the
summary.
go-to.
You have to endorse what you sell, but you just want to try to lower the barriers of entry because there are consumers that are interested in your brand or your lifestyle, mission, vision, and if you don't have a product that can fit their budget, then you kind of alienate them. So
Yeah, no,
it's
for sure.
definitely smart to try to find
I think
fit
the
for every consumer.
I think the intersection too, especially on the bikes and early e-bikes, just kind of getting that assist stuff, but the intersection of form and function and kind of having that aesthetic on an e-bike that's it's assisted but it's still good, and you find that balance has a huge consumer base, and it's just something that I don't personally see. I know if now that I'm talking about it, I'm probably going to get ads about it tonight.
Yeah.
But it's something that I definitely don't see anywhere, even here, or I'd say fairly when I travel.
Yeah,
This
no.
kind of aesthetic on more so the pedal e-bikes.
Yeah, we've been unfortunate at this point. I think Cake was definitely one of the better designed. I mean, there's plenty of good designed product,
Sure.
but this has something that looks, completely different than anything else in the market with the Scandinavian design. But probably last thing we should leave it on is, if you guys want to come check out Cake Bike, come by the Addict store. And we're also talking about doing a collab to make a custom one. What are your thoughts? What should that look like?
Ooh,
Yeah, guess the
maybe we'll have a
color.
little design competition.
Oh, we should host a design contest.
Host a little design comp. We'll get a frame up of what we're looking at, and then may the best designer win. What are they
Build
going to
something
win?
cool, and then
That would be sick. Let's do.
They're going to ride a day on a bike with you.
Yeah, they get to ride. I'll be shirtless.
we can
Shirtless
set
on
up
the end of the
two
bike.
seats on the
Shirtless.
OSA for you guys to go around together.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'll be shirtless on the back. too.
That'd
They
be
can They
awesome.
can get this up against the back. We
So
should
any-
do that though. We should do some kind of design contest.
Since the next part of this is actually to play pickleball, which hopefully we'll be able to get some content from as well. Do you have any final words to whoever may be watching, all 92 of our current subscribers out there?
Piece of
That,
that
for
advice
sure.
for
I mean-
life or business or whatever.
I was joking earlier that my piece of advice would be is, if you're going to start a exterior, meaning outdoor service-based business in Florida, don't do it, because I just had to do a bunch of work outside for the last 2 days with the Emoto, and it's absolutely miserable.
Just don't do it.
No,
in
that's
the
a joke.
Summer.
I mean, I don't know. Probably out of all the things I've learned is just, one, you never know everything. You're going to learn on a daily basis. I think common sense is probably one of the most important things in business, especially on the entrepreneurial side of things. Understand what you're not good at, surround yourself with the right people, and, ultimately just continue doing it. You're going to be exceptional in your field at some point in time, whether that's 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours. You just got to ideally stay around long enough to figure it out.
Stay alive, baby.
Stay alive, survive, and I think you've done a great job at it, even through through what you said earlier in doing that. You've had some hard times.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
Fought your way out, and now the next chapter is ahead of you. So
For sure.
Thanks for being here.
yeah.
This is good.
You'll
We'll have
be
to.
eating spicy pickles on the next one, though.
We'll do another one on like episode 50 once you guys get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Give
run
an
that.
update.
The backdrop will be different. You'll have 16 bikes. The store will be 10,000 square feet.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
true.
We'll have the polished concrete we
I mean,
talked
yeah,
about.
definitely at the current rate that you guys are recording podcasts, then for sure it'll be.
Yeah, at a current rate, shit, we might both be billionaires. by then.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Mike, for coming
Yeah,
out.
for sure.
Thank
You
Now
ready
I
to get
gotta.
that ass whooped?
Andrew and I are probably gonna. Well, we'll see who plays with who, but
He
yeah.
said he was a blue chip tennis player.
Who?
Him.
blue chip.
Oh.
I was maybe like 4 or 5. I mean, I was
He's like,
doing
okay,
okay.
a cyan chip
I'm
Blue
tennis
chip is a little
player.
different.
Blue chip or bullshit?
Yeah, it's true. All right, thanks
All
guys.
right, y'all.
All right,
Take
y'all.
care.
Peace.